Back in 1999, I was a stupid and young 18-year-old kid from rural Ontario. I didn't like the idea of working at a mill or driving a plow, so I decided to join the army. Enlisting wasn't too complicated back then, but it wasn't exactly a cakewalk either. I walked into the recruitment center nearest to me. Then a couple of corporals asked about my fitness, my grades, and why I wanted to join. I gave them some stock answer about wanting to serve my country. But really, I just wanted to get the hell away from my current life. 2 years later, I was a private with Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry, stationed in Edmonton. It was early autumn, and I was in the mess hall scarfing down a late breakfast after a run, when someone yelled out to crank up the volume on the TV. The screen showed the Twin Towers in New York. Smoke was pouring out of a hole in one of them. Then a few minutes later, the second plane hit. The room went dead quiet. Dudes forgot that they were even eating. Then we watched, totally stunned, as the towers collapsed and ash-covered people ran through ash-covered streets. Over the next few hours, the news kept replaying the planes, the fire, and the chaos, and the mess hall filled up with guys just glued to the TV. We all knew it, even before the CO started briefing us that war was coming, and it was going to be bad. The world that we had trained for, all the peacekeeping missions and Cold War cleanup, it was gone. We were headed to Afghanistan, and it wasn't going to be some UN mission handing out blankets either. It was going to be ugly, and we would be in the thick of it. But in 2002, the itch to do more than patrol and train got me thinking about GTF-2, which is Canadian Special Operations Forces, the real deal. If I wanted to guarantee a spot in frontline operations in Afghanistan, that was the ticket. Getting into GTF-2 was the toughest thing I've ever done. I was in decent shape, but decent just didn't cut it with how brutal that selection process was. They dragged us out into the backwoods of Ontario for a month of hell. We got barely any sleep, and were subjected to a constant mix of rock marches or navigation drills in the dark. But the worst were the psych tests, designed to mess with your head. The directing staff would scream at you, starve you, literally anything to push you towards quitting. I saw good soldiers tough as nails break down and walk away. I didn't crack, but I would be lying if I said I did not come close. After that came specialized training, close quarters combat, advanced weapons, parachuting, the works. It took a further year before I was badged in as a GTF-2 operator. By the time I deployed to Afghanistan in 2003, I felt ready for anything. We piled into a Hercules out of Trenton with a cargo hold stuffed with gear and guys from GTF-2. Then we all tried to catch a few hours of sleep to make the long-haul flight go faster. The plane droned on for what felt like forever, and we stopped to refuel somewhere in Europe before landing at Kabul International. When we stepped off that ramp, we saw mountains standing tall against the horizon, and the city sprawled out in front of us in a cloud of dust. Shit was getting real. Me and my unit ended up being based at Camp Julian near Kabul, a dusty compound ringed with HESCO barriers and razor wire. Inside it was all tents, connexes, and the constant hum of generators. We needed those generators too, because the heat was brutal. It had to be like 40 degrees Celsius in the shade sometimes, and the dust got into everything. Afghanistan itself seemed kind of like a paradox to me. You had those beautiful mountains and green valleys, and all of that rich history, but they had nothing to show for it. As GTF-2, operations were high tempo and high stakes. We weren't doing foot patrols or handing out aid. We were actually hunting bad guys. Mainly Al-Qaeda, but sometimes Taliban too. Direct action missions were the core. We would roll out in GMVs or on foot with NVGs, moving silently through villages where barking dogs could blow your cover. Then we would perform night raids on Al-Qaeda safe houses, kicking in doors, clearing rooms, and grabbing high-value targets like bomb makers or commanders. Other times we would do recon, lying up in the hills for days, watching insurgents through optics, then calling in airstrikes when the time was right. We would also sometimes work with our counterparts in the SEALs and Delta, sharing intel or hitting compounds together, and every operation was a gamble. We were up against IEDs, ambushes, or sometimes just bad intel that could turn a clean snatch into a fatal firefight. A few months after the coalition went into Iraq, so around late 2003, My guys and I were holed up at a compound on the outskirts of Kabul when we got news of a job. Our CO said that we would be linking up with a CIA outfit called Task Force Sabre 7 for a joint operation that involved hitting the suspected hideout of an Al-Qaeda bomb maker. We'd done these kind of operations before. Snatch the target, grab the intel, in and out. And JTF2 does not mess around. So I figured these CIA boys would be pros, just like the SEALs or Delta that we had run in with before. The name Task Force Sabre 7 sounded legit, like something straight out of a Tom Clancy novel. So we geared up, checked our C8s, and then rolled out, expecting a tight operation. We met Sabre 7 at a rendezvous point just outside the village in the early morning hours, but right away, something felt off. The task force was not what any of us had expected. Instead of a slick crew of American spooks, it was 3 Americans and a mob of 15 Afghans, all kitted out in mismatched gear like they'd raided one of Kabul's mini weapons markets. The guy in charge, a loudmouth calling himself Jack, strutted around in sunglasses and a US Army uniform, and talked like he was auditioning for a Hollywood war movie. He threw around terms like HVT and Intel Stream with this kind of forced bravado, but we could see it for the performance that it was. And the Afghans under him looked more like hired muscle than a disciplined unit. They were twitchy, gripping their AKs like they were just itching to use them. So, I had a really bad feeling about them from the get-go. Some of us figured that they might prove us wrong, work their magic, and bag their guy. But the op was a crap show from the start. We were supposed to sweep the village methodically, house by house, looking for bomb-making materials, looking for things like wires, chemicals, the usual signatures. But Jack and his boys treated it like a free-for-all. He barked orders at his Afghans in a kind of pidgin Persian, and then they stormed into mud-walled homes, kicking over furniture while screaming at families. We've been trained to keep civilians calm, to de-escalate high-tension situations, but Jack's unit was doing the exact opposite. I saw one of his guys smash an old man's face with a rifle butt for no reason other than he was slower than he liked to perform his commands. And stuff like that is considered a serious infraction, but Jack did not blink. He just kept yelling about bombs, the Taliban, and Bin Laden. It was chaos, and it was clear he did not know how to run a proper search. There was no grid pattern, no coordination. He pointed to random houses, claiming SIG-INT had marked them as hot. But when we checked, all we would find were blankets and cooking pots. It honestly seemed like things could not get any worse. But then somehow, they did. Jack's Afghans started dragging people out of their homes and then lining them up in the dirt. I heard screams from a house down the street, and when I got there, his 2 American guys were beating a shopkeeper, demanding he confess to being Al-Qaeda. The guy didn't even speak English, but Jack was right there minutes later, egging them on, saying stuff like, "Break them. He knows where the bombs are." But there was no evidence, no bomb-making equipment, just a terrified old man begging and pleading in the dirt. I pulled my sergeant aside and said something about how the task force did not seem like they knew what they were doing. He nodded, tight-lipped, but we had our orders. We kept moving, but I felt sick, like we were being complicit just by being there. The raid eventually wrapped up, but we found nothing. All we had done was tear the village apart. Then, as we were prepping to exfil, a couple of Jack's Afghans came over grinning like they had won a prize. One of them pulled out a cloth bundle and unwrapped it. Inside were dried, shriveled pieces of human flesh. There were fingers, ears, and other parts I could not identify. They said it was from a woman they had caught, claiming she was Al-Qaeda or Taliban. They couldn't even make their minds up on which. That almost made me puke right then and there. These weren't soldiers, these were just murderers and butchers. My team stood there, stunned into silence as the Afghans laughed and passed the bundle around like some trophy. I looked at Jack, half expecting him to shut it down, but he just smirked and said something about how that was part of their war and not ours. Back at base, my sergeant lost it. He got in Jack's face, calling him out for letting his men run wild and for letting them take body parts as trophies. But Jack just shrugged and said something about how he was just helping them clean house. I've seen some cold motherfuckers in my time, but the way that Jack guy acted was next level, to say the least. My sergeant stormed off, radioed our CO, and told him that we were done with those Sabre 7 clowns. We figured the CO would come down on us heavily, since they were CIA, but he came back saying that he couldn't get a straight answer on who they were. He called an American officer in Kabul who swore the CIA had no record of any Task Force Sabre 7, and the Pentagon did not know either. It was like Jack and his crew had just materialized out of thin air. We started quietly asking around, trying to figure out who the hell Jack really was, but nobody had any actual answers. Some of the American guys we worked with said that he'd been floating around Kabul since 2001, peddling fake Al-Qaeda videos and claiming he was hunting bin Laden. But it wasn't until mid-2004 that we started hearing whispers about what Jack was really up to. After that FUBAR raid with the so-called task force, we kept our distance from them. But then one day, the rumors started swirling. Apparently, Jack wasn't just some wannabe operator. He was running a private torture prison. The Afghan police raided his compound in July, and when the truth came out, it was worse than we could have ever imagined. He'd set up shop in a 2-story house in Kabul. It was a nondescript place that you would walk past without a second glance, but inside it was a living nightmare. They had turned it into their own private black site with zero oversight and no rules. They called it a mission to hunt Al-Qaeda, but in reality, it was more like something out of a cheap splatter movie. Jack was arrested, and so were his 2 sidekicks. One guy, Brent Bennett, was a former paratrooper. But the other guy, Ed Caraballo, was literally just a journalist, former CNN and National Geographic too, who had attached himself to Jack's fake unit so he could see some action. And their scam was terrifying and simple. They would grab Afghans off the street, just regular folks like shopkeepers, farmers, anyone they decided was a quote-unquote terrorist, and they would drag them back to the makeshift torture prison before interrogating them. Those that gave false confessions were then handed over to the Americans, most likely in exchange for some kind of bounty and continued military assistance. 8 guys were found when the cops busted in. Some were hanging from their feet, others bound and hooded, all of them beaten to hell. The place had makeshift cells, chains on the walls, with all the blood and feces everywhere, and I heard that it stunk to high hell. Jack claimed he was interrogating high-value targets for intel on bin Laden, but it was all bullshit. Most of those poor guys were just locals caught up in the wrong place at the wrong time. The Afghan government said it was a straight-up war crime, and they were right too. Jack's crew used methods that were medieval, like hanging guys upside down for hours, or sometimes days, until their bodies just sort of gave out. Other prisoners said their heads were held underwater, while Jack and his Afghans screamed questions that they could not answer. Sleep deprivation was another favorite of theirs. They would keep the lights on, blast music, and shake their prisoners awake every time they passed out. There were reports of starvation too, guys left without food or water for days in order to just break their will. Jack, whose real name by the way was Jonathan Edema, denied everything in court, claiming he never burned anyone with cigarettes, poured boiling water on them, or pulled out their toenails to extract confessions. But the survivors told a different story completely. They talked about being shackled in stress positions and the constant threat of beatings or worse if they didn't confess. Jack and his boys weren't actually interrogating anyone. They were torturing people for fun. I remember hearing about the raid on his place from one of our intel guys. Afghan police found bloodstains, ropes and hoods and stuff like that looked like it belonged in a horror movie. The prisoners, some of whom were barely alive when they were found, told the court that Edema's crew treated them like animals and how they even taunted and laughed at them as they begged and screamed for mercy. Edema had the nerve to say that he was working for the Pentagon, but it was all lies. The US military had taken just one single solitary detainee from him back in 2002 or 2003, and they had held the guy for a month before realizing he was a nobody. And after that, they cut him off. He had conned everyone from Northern Alliance warlords to journalists into thinking he was legit, and everyone had fallen for it, hook, line, and sinker. Sometimes I think back to that raid that he tricked us into joining them on, and the dried body parts his Afghan showed us. I am pretty sure that was not a one-off, and Jonathan Edema had encouraged it. And then I wondered how much more suffering he inflicted before he was caught. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison in September of 2004, and I get a real sense of satisfaction whenever I hear that news. But it did not erase the guilt of having worked with him, even if it was just for a couple of hours. He ran that house of horrors for literally years, ruined some people's lives, and then walked away with a pardon from President Karzai in 2007. I know he ended up dying of AIDS in Mexico in 2012, and while the circumstances surrounding his death are really shady, I know for certain he never fully paid for what he did. Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you, and back to the stories. Be me. Work this tow truck gig. It's good money, long hours, and it's not customer service focused, so it's a win-win. Job is easy as shit. Just have to drive, drag on a car, tie it down, and fill out a single form. But it is long hours. Jobs sometimes require me to be on a dirt road, alone, 30 kilometers, 18 miles from the nearest house/building. This sort of stuff normally doesn't faze me, even as winter is beginning to take hold. When I first started this job and was being trained by the guy who was leaving, he told me I needed to watch my ass while I was out at night. Didn't know what he meant by this. Does he mean people? Does he mean it can be hard to see what you're doing? I just shrug it off and begin working. 2 months into my new job, boss calls me at 2:30 a.m. saying there is one on Redacted Road, Holden Commodore, water pump shit itself. Keys on right front tire. Pull up, see Commodore. Turn work lights on. Put PTO in so I can use the hydraulic controls. Walk up to Commodore. Keys not on tire. Check over tires. They are not there. They are not there. About to call my boss. Hear the sound of keys hitting the ground. Fucking what the fuck? Turn around and the keys to his fucking car are on the ground behind me. In the middle of the road. Fuck this shit. Pull car on, standing there strapping things down. Hear something move behind me. It was quick, like stupid quick. Definitely not a human. Definitely not a row. Definitely not a dingo. Freak the fuck out. Finish the second strap and say fuck it, good enough. Begin to drive away. My headlights met some eyes in the dark. Went a couple of Ks up the road and finished the straps. Nothing to see or hear, so it never followed me. Went home and never said anything to anyone. I would find out that this would be the first of many weird late night encounters I would have for the next 10 months. Be me. 2 weeks after prior incident, I'm out near Gunnedah. Took a car from Coffs to Coonabarabran. Was pissed off there were no Yowies. The locals seem adamant there is things that you would not believe in the Piligan National Park. Whatever, well. Driving back, stopped in a rest area because logbook required me to take half an hour. Kick dirt. Smoke some cigarettes because it is the only vice I'm allowed to have now. Go for a piss at the edge of the forest. See something move. Just another row. It's not hopping, it's walking. Probably the local drunk walking around. I am on the edge of town after all. Massive roar comes out of the forest as I turn around and throw my cigarette on the ground and stomp on it. What the fuck? Jump in my truck. Legally cannot move for another 15 minutes. Fuck this, I'm out of here. I drive to the next rest area, fudge my logbook, and continue for the next few hours. Pull over again for an extra not required break. Beginning to become tired. 10 hours on at this point. Same deal. Smoke a cigarette, kick some rocks. Turn around and there is a fucking deer. We have deer in Australia? What the fuck? Kinda taken aback by the deer alone. Deer is just staring at me. I guess this is normal. They are a prey animal after all. Their whole survival instinct is to just freeze, so I guess it's normal. Walk up to say hello to the deer. Yeah, I am that guy. Go up to the deer. Full on pat this fucking deer. Quickly realize this is not normal deer behavior, even for a farm-raised one. Even then, there are no fucking deer farms anywhere near here. Kind of stand back and take an even closer look at this deer. Something about its eyes don't look right. It nods its head at me and walks off. What the fuck? I have lost sleep thinking about that deer and that roar I heard. I got a couple more stories. By this point, I've been doing this job for about 3 to 5 months. I began asking truck drivers in rest areas if they've seen weird shit. They all say they have. Wonder if there is some sort of trend going on there. Truck drivers are known for fucking around, but I can't imagine anyone actually wants the negative attention, and they all seem hesitant to talk about a lot of it. The common one that I keep hearing about is that there is some sort of panther, jaguar, tiger population scattered very sparsely around the country, and that they are shit scared of humans, but get a bit more brave at night. Be me. Been driving for hours at this point, about to do a backload back home. Thank God home is just a few mere hours away. It's 8 AM. Drive up to Mount Mitchell in northern NSW. Beautiful countryside. Dirt roads aren't that good, but whatever. Turn on to the next road. I believe it was Aqua Park Road. I crest a hill and I see it. It looked like a fucking black panther. It darted across the road very quickly. Before I could take a second better look, it was gone. Look in bushes as I drive past. I can't see it. Whatever. Probably tripping. Driving back up that road after loading up. I see it. It's definitely a black panther, but it's now off the road in a paddock. Go back and tell my boss. Ah, you finally saw him. What the fuck do you mean? They're around. They're scared of us because we hunted them to near extinction here. Convinced everyone is just fucking with me, and I'm losing my mind from working 12 hours a day for weeks on end. Fast forward to 2 weeks ago, driving up Waterfall Way, between Coffs Harbour and Gyra, doing 100 through fog and rain. I see something dark run at my truck. Went under the wheels. Massive thud. I can't express how big whatever it was that I hit was. Too dangerous to stop here. No good spot to do a U-turn, and I'm on a time limit, so fuck it. Suddenly, truck starts beeping at me. It's the cab tilt warning. The cab is not moved. Pull up in Gyra. The cab jack is smashed up into oblivion, like barely recognizable. Hydraulic lines shredded. Electrical box ripped apart. This wasn't a matter of running over what I'm questioning was a big cat. Something was under my truck trying to do as much damage as possible and was meticulous about how it did it. Scratch marks everywhere. Begin looking under engine bay. Engine is leaking oil from the oil pan. You guessed it, more scratches. What the fuck? Here's something on the far side of my truck. Walk over. See a shadow dart away into the distance. Too quick to make out what it was. Begin questioning if I need a new line of work. Boss rips me a new one for trashing the truck. Tell him it was something else. He laughs at me. Tell him that I am serious. His attitude softens. He begins to take a second look underneath the truck. He walks back up to me and says he had only seen this once before. The fuck do you mean? Tells me not to talk about it. Final one before I hop off for the night. Did an oversized load for a local Aboriginal farmer. These guys are honest, hard-working people. Loaded up this portable building and went out to his property. First time ever meeting him. Unload the building. He insists I stay for lunch. He makes me sit down on his porch and gives me a packet of cigarettes, a Gatorade, and a plate of shepherd's pie. I wasn't aiming to ask him anything serious, but I sorta half-ass ask him, "Hey, do you guys believe in weird shit that happens at night?" His face straightens. Tell me what you've seen. Tell him these stories and others that I can't be bothered to type tonight. He tells me to come with him. He lights a bunch of eucalyptus leaves on fire and starts cleansing me. While he's doing it, he says, bad spirits have been stalking me and that I have been in danger for months. Tells me that there are no panthers or tigers or any big cats on this continent. Tells me that they are in essence demons, not skinwalkers, but something akin to them. Tells me that only a small percentage of people actually see them. Says that I am one of the special ones. Lol, okay. He gets angry I am not taking this seriously. Can see he wants to hit me. Shit, better try take this semi-serious. Finish the cleansing. Tells me to come back to him if things begin to get weird again. Tells me that I am not allowed to share anything about this, and that the local elders would have shunned him for even telling me that there are demons and shit out there. Tells me to let him know if he sees any cows with their heads backwards. What? Tells me to come back for a beer sometime. This next story is not mine but a coworker's, and he said it freaked him out enough that he left without finishing the job, and in my opinion, worth the honorable mention. B coworker. Get sent hours away to Raspberry Lookout. Gibraltar Range in the middle of the night. Car plus caravan pickup, easy as fuck. Pull up, start pulling on car. Says it is dead quiet and serene, no one is there. Finish tying everything down, about to start up the caravan. Turn around. There is 12 people sitting there having a picnic in the middle of the road that he just drove up. 6 men, 6 women. Says the men were dressed as cowboys. Says the women were dressed in very convincing Dia de Muertos attire. Says he could not see any of the women's skin, just all black or all white. They are all just staring at him, completely nonchalant. Says when he locked eyes with them, he felt an overwhelming sense of dread. Says he knows they were not there a minute ago. Even then, how could they set up an entire fucking picnic without him noticing? Felt super uneasy and leaves. Camps up the road in the truck overnight and comes back at dawn. Says he will never go up there ever again. Final one for tonight. Can barely keep my eyes open. I do plan on calling the Aboriginal farmer again soon. I do have his number. Be me. Taking a Silverado up to Kilcoy, Queensland. Since we operate in NSW, the easiest route is just to take the New England Highway. Follow the highway at Warwick, keep left, veer right through the mountains behind Brisbane. The road between the New England and Gatton is probably one of the worst roads in the country. It's heavily neglected. Pothole city. The roads are not even level. You crawl through some parts like it's a goat track. Now do it at 4 AM. Witching hour. Heavy fog, light rain. Sort of weary at this point, but awake enough that I can make it to Kilcoy. Have a snooze in the truck and turn around at 10 or something. Look to my right. There is something humanoid following the truck in the tree line. I am doing 70 kilometers per hour. There is no way. Next thing I know, I hear a bang. Tire blowout. Great. More nonsense to deal with. Limp truck into a gravel patch. Completely forget about the humanoid creature chasing the truck. Start taking the spare off from under the tray. It's a chain and a bolt holding it on. Start looking for Jack, breaker bars and whatnot. It's Brisbane, so it is always warm, even in the winter. Suddenly the whole area goes cold. Ignore it, got shit to do. Hear footsteps around truck. Peek my head up over the tray. Who's there? Silence. I probably just imagined it. Realized I forgot about what I saw. Panic. The tire is half on the hub, so I do what anyone who is shit scared in the middle of nowhere would do. Do up 3 of the nuts as tightly and as quickly as I possibly can, and keep, carefully, driving into the next spot with a streetlight or an adjacent building. Pull up out the front of a farm with a streetlight out front. Working lights on, high beams, hazards, any source of light the truck had was on. Look around. Nothing. We should be okay now. Go to tighten the last couple of nuts. Doing it under the illusion that I am safe. About to tighten the last nut. I feel a tap on my shoulder. Freeze. I stop and listen. Nothing. I slowly turn around. There is nothing there. Fuck this shit. I completely ignore my survival instincts and tighten the last nut and go to walk around to the driver's side door. A fucking rock lands at my feet from the ditch next to the road. Fuck this. Someone is fucking with me, surely. Once more, I ignore my survival instinct. I walk over to the ditch, eyes locked the whole time. There is no way anything could move without me seeing it. Look into the ditch. There is nothing there. I feel a tap on my shoulder again. I freeze. I accept my death. I call upon the Lord in my head to save me. Turn around. There is nothing there again. But once more, a rock lands at my feet. Fuck this, I am done here. I jump into the truck and immediately put my foot down and leave. I refuse to drive through there ever again, especially at night. Haven't told anyone about it at work, thinking they will laugh at me. Got to Kulkoi, dropped car off, snooze, and drove back through to Wumba. Even to this day, I am still not sure what the fuck happened.